Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the Vertical IQ platform for industry research. Our presenter for today is Susan Bell of Vertical IQ, who I'll introduce in a moment. My name is Andy DeZamba, and I'm the executive editor here at BBR. Your attendance here today is eligible for 0.5 CPE credits. To receive the half a credit, you must complete and submit a brief survey on today's webinar at the conclusion of our presentation. A link to the survey is included with your registration email, and it's also available on the reading page for today's program. The survey will be active for 5 business days, and it will require you to fill in one 4-digit CE code. The CE code for today's webinar is 3406. Again, the code is 3406. I will announce the code again at the end of the program. If you have any questions for our presenter, we'll take them in writing only. To do so, please use the chat function on the left side of your screen. If you have any trouble with the audio streaming, please refresh your screen, and that will normally fix the problem. You can also access the webinar with your smartphone or tablet. Very happy to have Susan Bell with us today. She's a co-founder and senior sales director of Vertical IQ, and has almost 20 years of experience working in the business intelligence space. Her career includes stints in marketing as a banker and with First Research, a provider of industry intelligence tools. You can read her full bio here on the slide deck, and it's also on the webpage for today's program. With that, I'll now turn the program over to our presenter for today, Susan Bell. Susan?
Thanks so much, Andy. I appreciate it, and thanks everyone. I'm so glad that you're spending a little bit of time this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, with me. Today I thought I'd give you a look at Vertical IQ, what we provide for industry intelligence for folks doing valuations, appraising, you might be doing some exit planning, etc. It's important to know that all of this information, what I'm showing today, is available on our website and through BBR. So with that, I'm going to take you through a sample of an industry as well as a local economic report. Then we'll leave some time for questions and answers, but this is really to show you what's available to you in terms of industry intelligence out there from Vertical IQ. I'm looking at our main page here. This is an advisor site. So we will place in finding an industry. You may keyword search or code search to find any industry you're looking for. There's also a few other ways to search, including categories, etc. So for today's example, I'm going to look at dental practices. It seems like maybe evaluators, appraisers have come across a dental practice or two in their workspace here. So I'm looking at dental practices. There are 3 views that we're going to look at today: a dashboard, a profile, and then a local economic view. The dashboard is mainly a one-page quick, let's get up to speed before maybe having a first meeting with a potential client. It gives you an idea through a quick view of what makes up the industry. We love videos at Vertical IQ. This is going to give you an idea through a 3 to 5 minute overview of the industry here as well. A couple of talking points are given, maybe to start a conversation. And in this bar right here, these are really an idea for where this industry stands in terms of capital intensity, labor intensity, etc., versus other industries that we're covering. So it's giving you an idea, are they in the first, second, third, or fourth quartile if you're looking at a big picture. We also, for this particular sheet here, you've got a call prep sheet, which if I click on that, will give me a one-page printable sheet that you may use, like I said, in a meeting, to prep for a meeting. Important to note on the left is vertical news. It's important, of course, to read what's going on in an industry. We separate these by analyses, news, and insights. If I click on more news, it will open up for you all of the news articles that we have curated over a number of years. So I know it's important for you to sometimes have an as-of valuation date. Cannot be any information past a certain date. So as I keep scrolling, this goes back to 2013. So many, many years of data and news. So it's important to know that you can grab any of these articles, see what's happening at any point in time, what's being written about the industry, for your knowledge there. So news articles And then there's a quarterly insight. This is important to know because we're trying to keep you relevant in what's happening today, but if I click to find previous quarterly insights, again, realizing it's important for you to go back in time, you can scroll backwards. It's really a one-paragraph blurb of what are they thinking about? What was the issue? What's relevant? What's in the news at that point in time? So you can go back quarter to quarter to see what is happening. So in fourth quarter of 2017, they were talking about smoking cessation services and things. So it's just important to understand that we do calculate for you what was previously important, and coming soon will be archived entire profiles to the BVR platform of Vertical IQ. One thing to note here is that you may have access to or seen used in the past other industry research provider solutions. One thing that I think makes us a little different is the fact that we do this from a financial perspective. So as you'll see here, I've got a working capital wheel. So you'll see cash flow information. How do they sell an invoice, collect, manage cash pay, and report? So you can get an idea of their working capital and cash flow issues. Again, this was a one-page, get up to speed quickly, prep for an initial meeting kind of sheet that you see. The profiles where, the second tab here is where you're going to spend potentially most of your time. It's important to note that you can print in a PDF format the whole profile. We even have a customer version that doesn't have our questions and things included. So it's important to note that. And then every page has a printable section. So if you wanted to use a working capital section in your appendix as a complementary piece to your valuation, any of these chapters, you can certainly do that. And you may also highlight, copy, and paste anything here. I'll start with the first chapter. It's important to know that while we're covering dental practices, there are certainly many niche industries or specialties that flow underneath of that, such as endodontists or maxillofacial surgeons, etc. So to find those specialties, you would simply click here and get to 4 to 5 additional pages of information, risks, facts, trends, questions to ask, etc. The next chapter is working capital. Again, a little bit more of a financial focus. We even have a little call out here, which may or may not be of interest to you, but it's talking a little bit about where do folks in this industry, where do dentists go to find information or help when researching or talking about their cash flow or their working capital. So 55% of dentists go to their accountant or bookkeeper, et cetera. So just may or may not be of interest, just a little call out there. Something we do highlight is cash management challenges. Where do they have issues? Where do they have potential problems that you would see here? And then additional factors causing cash flow stress. So again, a little different focus. We'll certainly get to the overview, the big picture of what's happening in an industry. I just think this is a nice additional piece that you might like to see. Capital financing is a section that I don't know of many other places that would or other research sources that would have this type of information, but it really does talk about what does it cost to start up a company in this industry, what do they spend, how much do they spend for things like their operatory areas versus the patient waiting areas, and even examples of equipment purchases. So it's important to see what they might have in a CAD/CAM milling system or a sterilizer, et cetera, different types of pieces of equipment that you might find as part of a dental practice. Okay. There's a risks to watch out for section. So here are the ideas of industry risks as well as company risks. But first you'll see business failure and merger rates. This comes from our partnership and licensing agreement with BizMiner. We always have, if we license data, we'll tell you where it comes from, and you can pop out to see what that's all about and what the data sources are, et cetera. But this is going to give you an idea of, do these types of businesses fail or merge more frequently or less frequently than other U.S. businesses? And then what do we see out there for industry risks as well as company risks? What could you see in this particular practice? What's potentially out there? Before I go to the next chapter, I want to show you the terms you may hear. Just a good idea to be able to speak the same language and be relevant. These are the terms you might hear, what's used in a conversation with someone in this particular industry, plus the definitions. How firms operate is where I would start if I were looking at evaluation or appraisal. This is the big picture overview. What do they do? What do they make or sell? It's the industry overview, as I said. What services do they provide? We'll look at things like the revenue breakdown. How does that particular type of business with a typical dental office in this case, what does that look like? Who do they employ? A lot of times we'll have typical salaries, et cetera, that type of information here. Revenue per employee by firm size. All of this, like I'm showing you here, it can all be highlighted, copied, and pasted into any report, valuation, anything you want to do here. Profit drivers. This is important to have advisory conversations, maybe on the front end, or if you're talking exit strategy, et cetera. What are profitable dental practices doing to become profitable, that sort of thing. Here's your practice metrics and best practices.
Excuse me, Susan.
Sure.
I have a question that's come in. The question is, how often is this information update, and how do we know when it was last updated?
Sure, that's a great question, and I'll answer that in a second, but I will tell you as part of the reading materials we have a frequently asked questions document, and a lot of this is in much more detail explained there. We update on a quarterly basis. Not everything is available for quarterly update. For example, some of just the numbers, when we get to that section, they're annual numbers, but it will definitely tell you that. But we're looking at the profile, the verbiage on a quarterly basis. Everything gets scrubbed annually. So every sentence is scrutinized and scrubbed and looked at on an annual basis, but most of the sections are updated quarterly. For example, Bureau of Labor Statistics is actually updated on a monthly basis. Things that, charts and graphs that I'll show you here in a moment from BLS. Of course, Census Bureau is updated every couple of years because the census isn't done every year. But the news articles you're receiving several per month. So the best answer to that is most of it is quarterly. A lot of the other sections, as I've noted, will tell you on that section if it's not quarterly, if it's an annual thing or more frequently than that. You'll see by the dates. And you can tell from the profile up here, I'm highlighting it now, it says last updated January 2019. So you'll get a month, not necessarily a specific date, but a month and year that it was updated. And then, of course, you can go back quarter by quarter to see every one of the quarterly insights as well as the news articles. So those are listed by date there. Okay.
Another question came in. You mentioned the coming availability of historic industry data.
Yes. Yes.
Can you comment on when that availability may be, and how far back will it be available?
Well, the second part of the question is easy. It will go back as far as the initial profile was written, and we add profiles all the time. So there will be some profiles that won't have much more than a year of archived information, but this is dental practices. It goes back to 2013. So as far back as probably 2011 when Vertical IQ started for some of those. So it's not definite. Every article or every industry has the same number of archived profiles, but they'll be archived quarterly. And coming, I think, on the next release, we just had a release March 26th. The next release should be early May. Those will be available. However, if you wanted to have access today and you said, I need these archived profiles for these dates, we can certainly send it to you in a file. So we have them. We're talking and going through design right now for how to get them to look pleasant and in a nice place for you to retrieve them on the site. But that'll be in our next release. Other questions?
Great, thank you. That's
Sure.
it for now. Thanks.
Excellent. So our next section is forecast and structure. So important to know what the actuals are in terms of growth rate. So I'm hovering here, and of course this is, again, we'll tell you where we get our information if it's a licensed data or a partnership. So this is from the Inter-Industry Economic Research Fund. It's a part of the University of Maryland. The last update was September 2018. This is one of those places where they don't have information that's updated more frequently than twice a year. So our next update will be actually April. So we'll have one fairly soon for this. Twice a year, but you can see the actuals through 2017, 2018, because this is a September update, is not yet here, but it's giving you the projections out through several years in the future. So you're going to get growth rate, Size and structure. This is kind of an unsung hero for Vertical IQ because it'll give you some information that you might find interesting, including what percent are female-owned and minority-owned, veteran-owned, or have employees and other ownership from veterans, et cetera. What's the percentage breakout for general dentistry versus oral surgeons, orthodontists, et cetera. So that's a nice little bullet, very succinct area where you can find some great information about the industry as a whole in terms of size and structure. And then we have a little pseudo SWOT at the bottom telling you how many practices there are out there, buyers, substitute suppliers, and new entrants, et cetera. Again, you wanted to copy this or print the whole entire page to use in your reports, you absolutely have every right and capability to do that. Trends is another great section to just find out what's happening in terms of trends in the industry. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, trends don't update every quarter, so you might see some of the same trends, not update, meaning they don't change necessarily on a quarterly basis. So you may see some from quarter to quarter because we're still looking at growth of cosmetic dentistry. It's still very big. You're going to see that time and time again. But you also see employment and wage trends. What does it look like in terms of employment? What do the wages look like? Again, this will be updated right here. Should be in April. Yep, we'll get that in April. The quarterly insight is that piece that's going to tell you this is what they're talking about today. This is what's on the minds of dentists today. So they're talking about partnerships with chains like Walgreens. Last quarter they were talking about, well, this is interesting, their dentists are planning to retire later. So you're going to see what the buzz is quarter by quarter. And today, you don't have to wait for the archived profiles. You can go back as far back as we started to write this particular industry. So you can see quarter by quarter what the deal was then, what they were talking about then. Call prep questions, this is kind of the bread and butter of not only asking great questions if you're having that conversation with a business owner, but also understanding what the average questions are. These are all covered in each of the chapters. The working capital questions are covered in the details of that particular chapter, but it's just a great way to show it in question format with your answers underneath. Web links, this is another unsung hero. I really like this section because while we give you great analysis, you might have additional questions. You might want to know more about dental economics, giving you practice management metrics or something like that. Or you might want to look at something that's going to give you more equipment information. So these are great sections, great links out to other websites. They might be trade associations. It might be any other type of resource that's out there for you. So good to know that we're culling that information for all of these industries to give you the best places to go look for additional maybe niche information as well. There is a business valuation section. This is going to look very familiar because this is coming from deal stats from BVR. So we're giving you a quick look at price to sales to gross profits, EBITDA, and without depreciation and amortization for a number of transactions. The count here is 141. But it's really going to direct you right back to bbresources.com. So that section is included. And then just the numbers, important benchmark information. So the industry financial benchmarks, we have 3 years worth of data. The source is BizMiner. Their source is IRS data. This is tax return information. But you're going to get financial ratios, income statement data, and balance sheet data. There's little hover bubbles that'll give you additional information. You all know this, but it's going to give calculations and definitions here. And then look at the number of firms analyzed. It's quite large, so this might be very, very helpful to you. You can do this industry-wide or segment it for if you're talking about a small, medium, or large-sized business. And that will, in fact, let me do an example of that. So if I'm talking about a dental practice that's less than $5 million in sales, in a second it's going to update me, and I'm going to get, most of them are under $5 million in sales. It's going to give me that targeted to that particular size. Okay, and that's your balance sheet data at the bottom. You are very welcome to copy, paste, print, share everything. Again, there's a print page here, and once again, you can print the full profile. I have a lot of valuation expert customers that are printing the whole thing and just adding that as kind of an appendix to the end of evaluation. So you're absolutely able to do that. There's plenty more here, but we have a short time frame today, so I want to spend a little bit of time showing you a few more things. Local economies. So while you're piecing together what's happening in an industry, you also have the ability to take a look at what's happening in that particular local economy. We'll give you a national economic outlook. It's updated every 6 to 8 weeks by Ingo Windsor. You can Google him. He's a pretty smart guy, and he was actually one of our partners at First Research, but he has another company called Local Market Monitor, and he does a lot of forecasting, etc. So he does a national economic outlook, and then we have a breakdown by region and then by MSA, metropolitan areas. So if I were looking for at a company that's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, instead of looking at an Indiana state profile, I can look at more specifically what's happening at that MSA level. And here's census data, Census Bureau data, so you see a 2017 date because census isn't done like we said before, but look, it'll tell you the last update. You get an idea of what's happening locally in terms of business growth. What types of industries are growing in that area, in the MSA, and you can click here for all industries. What's happening for job growth versus the U.S. average? I know this probably looks small. I'll click on it to make it a little larger, but you're getting red is the U.S. average, and that local market job growth is in gray. Unemployment, what does that look like? So what a great addition to a bigger picture of what's happening not only in the industry but also in that local economy. Employment information by industry. There's a little something on startup activity which may or may not be helpful to you. Even residential real estate status. So is the area growing? What's it look like for housing permits, etc.? Okay, so this is included as well with a subscription to Vertical IQ. It's going to give you access, I'm going to click here again and show you, access to all of these regions, and there are about 350 metropolitan areas. So if you're in California, you know, it's much better to look at this level versus a California state profile just to see what's happening in California itself. So I wanted to make sure that that is highlighted for you there. One other thing I want to show you, not that this is anything except for a nice bell or whistle, but we have a preferences tab. So if you want to come in here and you deal in certain industries, maybe you have 10 or 20 industries that you see all the time, and you want to just make sure that you make star the item to make it your favorite. You can also click on the envelope to start receiving quarterly updates so we can forward information to your inbox when we change and update the industries. But if you star this, and now I update my industry settings, I'm going to show you something on the Preferences tab when we go back to the home page. It's just a nice user experience. Now, under My Industry News, all of my favorites pop here. So you can see news articles that matter to you because those are the industries you deal in a lot. You may be industry agnostic and you have all different industries all the time that you're working in, or you may have favorites. So this allows you to see what's important to you right on your dashboard. Also notice that under My Local Economy, now Fort Wayne, Indiana shows up, and it's going to give me right smack in my face what's happening with job growth, home price forecast prices, and unemployment for my favorite or my local economy. So it's just a little something special there. I just wanted to highlight for you. Also want to let you know, yes.
Oh,
do you have a question?
A question on the local economy section.
Yeah.
The question
Let me go back.
Is there archived data available of the local economy information for past dates?
That's an interesting question. That is not something that we had planned on populating in the archived area that we're creating in our next release. However, there is some information that you can see as actual data. Where were we? Fort Wayne. Let's look at Fort Wayne again. When we go to this particular section, well, any of the graphs here, you're going to be able to see dates. So you're going to see unemployment rates, U.S. averages, so from 08, 09, 10. So there is some information there, but it's going to get you out through 2018. So it's not really archived or previous dated information that would stop at that particular date. So I don't know if you can use that, but there is information that would give you previous year actuals, if that makes sense. But that's good to know. Maybe we should be archiving those as well. So that's good information. One last thing to show you before I stop talking, because we've got about 5 minutes left and would love to answer some additional questions, is that this news tab does a little something extra for us too. So it's important to find out news for that particular industry, but you might want to go broader. You might want to see, I want to see news for healthcare in general, maybe not just dental practices, but big, broad, what's happening in healthcare. And now this is where you can choose custom date ranges. So if you did want to say, I can't see anything past January of 2017, you could actually put your custom date range in there, okay? And then it would show all of your sources. You can also do things like keyword searches. So, if you had something for the state of Alabama, you wanted to see what was happening or being written, or you wanted to see growth rates for certain things, you can actually keyword search. It will pull back for you through the title or description of the article, what we covered. Again, these are curated by humans on our team. It's not web scraping. So we have two people actually assigned to news on the Vertical IQ team, and they're pulling articles for these industries and finding, what has maybe a financial slant, has to do with a merger or acquisition, something that's happening, maybe some insights or an analysis written about the industry. So you have the ability to kind of get a little closer to what you're looking for by the search methods. There's also general business insight articles that you can go back in time and see those as well, if that's important to you, just to say, here's generally what's happening for small businesses in 2017 again. Okay, so you have a little extra play here. And by the way, we do great training services for you if you were to subscribe, and we have folks that would be able to answer questions anytime. In fact, this feedback and support, I don't want to let this go without showing this to you. On the bottom right-hand corner of every page of Vertical IQ, if you have a question, you can ask us anything. It doesn't go to a customer service area, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it goes directly to the people writing the profiles, our writers and editors. You can request a new profile. If you see something's, we're not covering a certain industry. If you need help, if you want to give us feedback, let us know you can even attach a file. Let us know what you want. Give us your email, send the message, and we get back to you within 24 business hours. So think about it this way. It's a great subscription-based service, but if you can't find something, you have a question about some of the verbiage or a date of, a date range for something, any question that you have, you're going to get an answer back. If it's about an industry we're not covering, we'll give you some sources. We'll send you web pages to get where you're kind of going, because we know where to find the information. We just may not have written the profile yet. Or if we have an unedited version or not a final version of a profile we're about to publish, we'll send that to you. So definitely know that you have a service that's reactive as well as having the subscription base. So I'm on the East Coast, it's 1:28. I want to be cognizant of the time and make sure, Andy, that we open it up for any questions.
Yeah, sure. You want to take a few now, Susan?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. One question came in. Maybe you covered it, but maybe I missed it. The number of industries that you cover.
Sure. So we have, including the niche industries, which are specialty spotlights. They're not full profiles, but they're about 5 pages of additional, like the endodontists that we were looking at. Including those, there's over 400, but we are adding 400. That is. We are adding 1 to 2, maybe 3 or 4 profiles per month. So one thing I didn't talk about was roadmap, what's happening for the rest of the year at Vertical IQ. We're trying to grow the number of industries by double what the new profiles were from last year, from 2018. So we're hoping that we're going to have more like 3 per month over the next year. So we're trying to grow the number of industries. Some of the other enhancements that we've just made versus so last year it was more about the delivery of this. So we created an API and there's an app and all these kind of things. This year it's going to be more about the content and number of profiles. So you'll see more in that space. Great question.
Another question, do you do any coverage of Canadian
We do. We do. Not companies. We do the Canadian industries. We'll do large Canadian sectors. It's a whole other site. It looks like this, but it's for Canada. So we have all of the industries we cover for the U.S., all 400 of them. They have a Canadian spotlight. So let me look at this for you. I don't have it up right now, but we do have it, and I can certainly send. In fact, Andy, Jared, any of you, if you don't have a Canadian profile in the reading materials, I can send one to you to add for the reading materials. But as you go to a profile, the very first chapter for the Canadian profile is the Canadian Spotlight, but we also cover 8 Canadian sector profiles, which is 100% Canadian information. It's retail, healthcare, manufacturing, all of the big sectors We have a Canadian-specific profile, and then a spotlight for what's different in Canada in addition to the U.S. data for all other industries. And then we do cover all of the provinces as well. So like, it doesn't look like local economies. It's a little different. In fact, sometimes I think it's a little better. But we do cover the Canadian provinces as well.
Yeah. Just by the way, there is a Canadian information in the
oh, great.
reading materials. Yeah.
Excellent. Good.
Another question, your source of data for future industry growth, where does that come from?
That is Local Market Monitor.
Okay.
That section there, yeah.
I
think that's what you're asking. Maybe not. Maybe it's you mean future industry growth. This section here, not on the local economies, but this right here, the future industry growth. I'm sorry, it's right here, Inter-Industry Economic Research Fund. I'm sorry, we have a couple growth charts, so I wanted to make sure I was speaking to the right one.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Yep.
A question on some specifics. Do you sell one specific report, or do you have to have an annual subscription?
We do both. You can buy a specific report, and I think you can do that through BVR, right, Jared and Andy? I believe you have both options. Yep. You can have a subscription or an individual report.
Okay. And as for pricing, I will refer anybody in the audience to their BVR representative on that.
Great.
Right?
Sure.
Okay. Also, does Vertical IQ offer prospective subscribers the opportunity to test drive or have a limited duration access for trial use?
Yes, we can do that, and I believe your BVR reps can provide that as well. And there are sample profiles on the site, so you can take a look at those as well.
Okay. Another question. Do you have a mobile app?
We do, but I don't believe BVR users have it. So it's, but we do have an app, yes.
Okay. That's all the
I was
questions
hoping that wouldn't come up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. We do and we don't.
Okay. That's all the questions I have from the audience. Any other thing you want to go over or some final remarks?
Well, again, we're happy to answer any questions. It's very easy to ask more through your BVR rep. If I'm happy to ask any. My contact information, I think, is included in the reading materials. Very, very happy to help any way we can. Appreciate the time.
Well, terrific. Thank you, Susan Bell, for a very fine demo. And I want to thank all of our listeners for attending. As a reminder, to receive your CPE credit, I think there's a link there for more information. And also on the screen there is our CE code, which is 3406, which you'll need to get your CPE credit. You need that when you're filling out the survey, which is provided in your registration email and also on the reading page for today's program. The survey will be active for 5 days and must be completed before we can process certificates. After 5 business days, we'll process all surveys and send CPE certificates via email. You can find more information on future BVR webinars at bvresources.com/training. Our next event will be next Tuesday, April 9th. We will have a regular ongoing program that we do, which is our BV Law Case Update, where we will cover recent valuation-related court decisions. Also, quickly, if I may mention our live conference we have coming up this May. BVR is partnered with the AAML, that's the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, for the National Divorce Conference, May 8 to 10 in Las Vegas. If you do any work in divorce, you'll want to attend this conference. We will have valuation experts, attorneys, and forensics pros in 3 different tracks of sessions. You can go to the BVR website training section for details on that, and I hope to see you there soon. Again, thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of the day, and you may now disconnect. Thank you very much.